Hello and welcome to the Hopton Sage 500 1000 Data Vault webinar. Hopton have been around since 2021. We have delivered 57 projects across 23 clients using the agile method to keep clients front and center of everything we do. We recently took on a product called Pyramid Analytics, which is designed for larger enterprise projects. And we've got a webinar next week on that. If you want to join us, drop me an email and I will give you the URL. Together, we have worked for over 40 years in the industry, the 6 of us in the company at the moment, and we have been delivering Power BI applications across, say, 23 clients for the last 2.5 years. Okay, the data vault itself, obviously the data comes from Sage 500 stroke 1000. That goes into our data vault itself. We can also add extra data to remap account codes, for instance, or product codes to match what is needed for your new ERP system. And using the business intelligence dashboard that we built, we can then import clients' data, stock data, supplier data from the new transactions from your new ERP system. So you're able to keep the continuity of your historic data plus your new data coming in into one dashboard. So one dashboard can represent your new data and the continuity there is, and you also have all your data coming back from the Sage environment itself. So what data are we talking about here? Well, it depends on each client. Each Sage 500 client has different modules. So you've got quite a good combination of modules there, plus the core ones, usually sales, purchase, nominal, are the ones that most people use, and then back it out into order processing, purchase order processing, and stock and manufacturing. With the system keys, and there's thousands of system keys, each one of your sites is reasonably unique. System keys can change not only the way the product works, but also the tables that hold data in the back end. You also have projects which can be turned on, and again, they have a bearing on the data tables as well. So what we need to do ourselves and yourselves, if you're thinking of this, is to do a proof of concept to work out where the data is, what data you want, and what kind of shape it's in. So how do we do that? Well, first thing is we go through each of the ledgers in turn. So if I look at the general ledger, for instance, the chart of accounts, the way Sage 500 works is it's got five key elements to the general ledger code. There's some cost centers and account codes. That may not be how you want the new system to work, or may not be able to. So you may well have to remap the data to say, right, this GL code in Sage now becomes this. And we can store that information, and we'll talk about how we get that out later on. You need to pick a date when you're doing your final trial balance in Sage, and that represents your opening balances in the new system. Are you creating trial balances, for each year going back? Some people do. Some people just take the transactions out the opening figure and use the old spreadsheets they have. Are you taking budgets and forecasts out of Sage? I'll be honest with you, a lot of clients that I've dealt with haven't used that at all, but some may. And if you do, that's great, no problem. We can take that information as well. Again, we can take foreign currency details. And if you've got multiple companies, we can talk about that, because that is an area we can look at. The main thing there is the nominal ledger transaction. So we can take everything from the nominal transaction file that's happened on the system and bring that in as well. So not only can you see your opening figures, but you can also see all the history going back, not just 1 year, but pretty much how long the data has been stored in Sage for. If I look at the sales ledger, same thing. You've got custom master records. The coding of those may well be fine for the new system, but again, if you need to remap it, that's cool as well. We can do that. Foreign currency codes and account codes can be set up as well in there, so we know what they are. Some ERPs, for instance, have one account code and multiple accounts depending on currencies. Not the way Sage works, but it is a way some ERPs do. So maybe the remapping will be needed for yourselves. Additional contact information, pricing and discount codes can be brought over. GL maps to say which trade debtors account does this go to. and open ledger items can be brought over as well. And that's traditionally how you would take the data for your new ERP. We can also then look back at the historic information on the ledger, what's been paid, what's also been archived. So within Sage, you've got the idea that you can actually archive data off and keep the ledger quite small. If you've done that, we can take those ledger files, those archive files, and bring them in. So we can take all the data you have going back to the life of the whole customer in this case. Same on the creditor side. Again, you might want to remap your account codes. They might be fine, all the contact details. And again, we can take the open transactions. And again, if they've been archived, we can take those as well. On the stock system, we've got the item master file. Now, this probably will require remapping because a lot of systems don't use the warehouse product code combo that Sage 500 does. A lot of new systems use the product code, and then each of the warehouses that we call them would be locations within those. So you may well have to think about that. We can manage that and bring that data through as well, obviously. We can store all the extra information like the GL codes for the balance sheet items and the P&L items for adjustments. Most ERPs will take on opening positions, opening stock figures. We can take those, but also we can take the stock movement history going back as long as the asset is, or the item's been in your system. We can also take serial tracked items and batch tracked items and the history files thereof. So if somebody says, right, I need to be able to see where did this item go for this customer 5 years ago, if the information's in Sage, we can bring it in, and you're not going to lose that when you move to your new ERP system. On the sales order processing side, again, we can take all the standing data like discount codes, price lists, links to GL code. Some of this information will be different in your new ERP system, but it's good to know what's there. Open sales orders we can take in, and recurring sales orders, and they often come through as an ERP item for migration. What we can definitely do though is take all your sales analysis files, your tracking of your serial items and your batch tracking. Now the sales analysis file, depending on the project code, depends on which table it takes the data from. So there are some projects in Sage where when you turn them on, it goes to a different sales analysis file. You may have seen that already. We can take either, doesn't matter for us. On the purchasing side, similar to the sales order processing side, we can take on open purchase orders, we can take on blanket purchase orders, but we can also take on the history, so we can see the order number, what was on it, when it came in, when it was invoiced, and stuff like that. So with all the history we brought over, you're not going to lose that vital information about your suppliers. A couple of modules that I put down as optional. Cash book may or may not be a big thing for yourself. And again, we can take on the transactions in the cash book if that's something you need. Fixed assets, again, I don't know many clients who've used that, but again, we can take on the fixed asset history. So not only will you have the opening capital value of buying it, you can have all the history and then the written down value or zero, depending if the asset's been written off or not. Other modules we can look at would be the contract management, bill of materials, work order processing. Project ledger and source ledger was a sort of quite an esoteric one, so may not be many people who need that. Requisitions, product configurator, and because we're talking about Sage 1000 as well, there may well be CRM data that you want to bring in. It could be quotes, it could be contacts, information like that from CRM. We need to have a look and see what you want, but we can bring it in once we know what you're looking for. So let me show you the actual solution itself. This is opening Microsoft Fabric or Power BI, depending on the day when Microsoft changed their names or whatever. So there we are, now it's Power BI. Okay, so when you use Power BI, this is your traditional way of getting in. All the different dashboards are available to you. We're going to pick up this 500, 1000 volts here. And all our applications start the same way. So we have a help screen, which helps clients who aren't used to the product work it. So for instance, you can ask questions up here. I'm going to be lazy and just click on a button here, and it shows me my sales by customer for the year 21. I could say that as pie, and it will automatically change that to be a pie chart. All right, so it's quite clever in terms of how it works. We also have Q&A, and again, you can key in your own Q&A here. If I pick, say, for instance, that guy, it'll then show me my top 10 customers as a grid. I could say that as a bar chart, as a bar. And it'll then show me that as a barcode or bar chart. There we go. All right. So quite intuitive, quite easy to use. and it gives you an awful lot of information very, very quickly based on your Sage data. What we also have is the ability to say, right, let's go and look at our predefined dashboards. So here we have an example of how a dashboard would look. Typically, we have a map to give people an idea of what's going on. This is based on revenue for the last 3 years. If I want to pick, say, product groups, so let's pick toys. Okay. And then I want to pick, say, a product within that. So penguin egg hats. I'm not sure what they are, but it sounds good. And if I want to pick a particular customer, and I want to see some more detail behind that. Okay, so this is showing me for this customer, the sales that we have for the year. If I pick take toys, for instance, there, which is just over 120 grand, it shows us where we are. So we had a good month in March for selling toys, and we had a half decent one in August as well. Okay. I go to the sales ledger itself. We can see our movements for the last 3 years. We also have information about histories of invoices. So if I click on, say, Chester Zoo there and click on more detail, it then shows me the history of that customer and the order numbers that we have. Okay. Again, I can export this out to Excel or PowerPoint. Now that's grand, it's showing us the data we have, but say for instance, I wanted to see something different. So this table here shows us information about customers and products. So I might want to say, well, actually, I want to look at the item code, but I want to see the long description because that to me makes more sense. Okay, and now the long description should have popped in. There he is. Okay. I can see unit code and warehouse code don't have an awful lot of data, so let me take those off to make this a bit handier. So I'll take the unit code off and the warehouse code. And then it shrinks down again. I might say, right, customers, I want to see the credit limit because that's useful to know. Click on that and the credit limit pops up. There it is there. All right. So all the way along, you can vary these. You can add extra fields. If I want to see the territory, for instance, maybe it's the rep. I want to see who's actually doing the business. I put territory there, and it shows me then over here who the territory is and who the owner is. All right. Again, if I look at the nominal ledger, again, I can see my debits and credits. This is going back for 2 years as well. Again, I could make this smaller, shrink it down. I could look at a particular journal and see what's going on for a journal, or I could say all journals. Let's say select all, for instance, and that changes. All right. I could look at by a particular account code. I want to see what's going on. I could do it by, I'm using the term posting code because that's what Sage calls it. Or I could pick up a description if I want to see what's going on there as well. And the purchase ledger is very similar insofar as we have the supplier, and we have all the information about invoices. So if I want to pick, say, DPD as a supplier, let's give you on down there, DPD, it's there. Then I can see all the invoices that were on that account and the history going back. So 23, so they're actually current, though they have been paid. All right, so that adds up to that. So we don't owe them any money. So that's the dashboard and how it works. And you can see, hopefully, the capability that's built in within that. We've got a few questions coming in. So the first one we have is, what will happen to the data on the Sage server once the license runs out? And the question, I suppose, makes a lot of sense insofar as the data is usually stored in SQL, is usually on a box, an on-premise box. So the data is not going anywhere. It's just that you cannot access it through Sage. I believe Sage are offering a one-user license. It's not an inquiry license, it's a full license, the way Sage works. There isn't an inquiry license. But they're going to be charging for that. So, and you also have the upkeep of the server and the SQL as well. So this represents quite a good option to move stuff over, especially with the remapping of the account codes. That's a big thing. How long will you need to install and configure? Well, as you saw from the presentation, hopefully you've seen, every site's going to be slightly different. Some will have modules we haven't done any work on. Some will want extra data brought in. So what we'll do is we do a proof of concept to look at the data, look at what you have and what you need, and then we can give you an estimate based on that. But it gives us an idea, and a good idea, as to how long it will take to do. We can remap our data to match the requirements of our new ERP. Yes, you can. So as I said before, what you can do is if something is called ABC in Sage, you can take that data, add in an extra field and say, right, now it's called XYZ. And when we pull the data through to go into your new system, it's called XYZ, but the link is still there. So we can then, in our dashboard, link the old data, ABC, with the new data, XYZ. So we can bring the new data from the new transactions and the old data together in one dashboard. So we have the complete continuity, which is good. Is this useful for AI? Yes, it is, because AI needs two things. It needs lots of data and accurate data. If we have to do an exercise, or you have to do an exercise to bring in data with spreadsheets, or you have to rekey stuff, that adds error. And the volume of transactions simply won't be there. It just takes too long to bring that in. So AI will be catered for. All the new toys, the chat GPTs, the business intelligence applications, they will all have enough information to start making pretty good predictions and forecasts based on real data. When Sage is gone, how can I reprint a sales invoice? Yes, perfect. We can produce PDFs from this. So as you saw there on the ledger, we have all the order details. Every line is there. The VAT is there. So we can represent what the invoice looked like. So that's not a problem at all. Can I bring in PDFs? Okay, similar question. The answer is you can't bring in PDFs. So if you have paperless, for instance, or any of the other applications, DocStore, as long as those invoices, those PDFs are stored in a particular folder, and there's a link between the file name and the data within Sage, we can bring that together. There usually is. So there's a way, you know, the way in Sage, the moment you can press a little button and it shows you the actual PDF. We can have a very similar thing where PowerPoint or PDF, Power BI, for instance, can have a drop down, click on that, and it pops up the actual PDF for you. We won't bring it into Power BI, but we can certainly make it link to those. So conclusion there, I suppose. First thing is that most ERP migrations only take open transactions. They don't, and opening balances, they don't take on historical data, and that's very important. If you've got a 20-year set of history files, you don't want to lose those. They're very important. Often the account code in 500 doesn't match the new ERP, and hopefully you can see we can remap those to make that link very, very simple for you. The data is AI ready, and you've got big data straight away, which is very important for accurate and good predictions. And the data vault also gives you continuity, so you can see the life of a customer all the way through, the life of a product, the life of a supplier. Everything is in one place. You haven't got to go off and find half the data over here and some of the data over here. It's all in one place. So what's the next step? Well, what we'd ideally say is that we should get in contact and we can do a proof of capability session for you, which looks at your data, looks at what you want, and hopefully makes the join between the old system, Sage, and your new ERP very, very simple and very, very smooth. So email us on hello@hoptonanalytics.com or give us a call on that number. I'll be leaving this up on LinkedIn and on YouTube as well, so you'll be able to see this information, or just hit me with an email. That's great. Super. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.